I'm doing well. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks again for joining us. And for members of the media on the call, please press *1 at this time to get in the queue to ask questions for Coach Dow. Coach, before we get to that, can you give us your thoughts on your season so far?
Well, obviously, not doing as well as we would have liked at this point. I think what we've learned, kind of, like I said, about nearly the halfway point of the season is, certainly a lot of inexperience. I think has probably hurt us. Just to be very upfront, we've got, really, if you look at our top 9 that we're playing with right now, and we've had a couple of injuries, obviously, that have affected the rotation as well, but 6 of those 9 players are in their first year Division I basketball, and that's 4 freshmen, 2 junior college transfers. So it's there's been some growing pains, and not surprisingly a little bit of inconsistency, and all 6 of those kids are averaging double-figure minutes. So we've had some positive moments. I thought Saturday's win over Georgia State was huge, just from a confidence standpoint, and to rally like we did, coming from behind, coming actually from a 12-point deficit in the middle of the third quarter, and to win by 9 points. But still excited about going forward. Hopefully we'll be maybe a little healthier in a couple of weeks. Senior guard in Andriana Jackson, who was probably just kind of starting to come into her own when she got hurt, unfortunately, in the first game of conference against Arkansas State. We're hoping to see her back here in a couple of weeks.
Well, Coach, you mentioned a little bit about how the win on Saturday meant a lot for your confidence, but what does it mean heading into this weekend, especially against UTA and Texas State, to have your first conference win under your belt?
Well, again, just to know that we can do it. To be honest with you, we've had some games this year that, even using, let's say, Arkansas State as an example, we were tied at the half on the road, down 7 going into the fourth quarter, and then they kind of pulled away from us. But the game on Saturday was the first time that we've probably made, that big of a comeback to find a way to get the win. So I think if nothing else, like I said, going forward, we at least have something to reference and know that we can do it. And we've had a tendency, whether it's youth or, like I said, inexperience, whatever the case may be, but a lot of times when we fall behind by 10 or 15 points, that more often than not, instead of battling back and staying competitive, we let those games get away from us in a hurry, and all of a sudden you're down 20 or 25. So hopefully we've learned from that. The other big thing that we've talked about too, and you can look at the league standings right now, and clearly, although it's early, 4 teams have kind of separated themselves from the pack, if you will. But then you've got the other 8. The other 8 teams, there's only one game, that separates you from people either above you or below you. So, it's important that we have some success and find a way to win games on the road. And certainly, Texas State has been a very competitive series in the short time that I've been here. All 4 games have gone down to the wire. We've won 2, they've won 2, but they've either gone into overtime or literally down to the final minute of the game. So it should be a great game.
Coach, going forward, do you think you're going to rely a little bit more on Alexis Collins to provide some scoring punch for your team? She's shown flashes throughout the year, putting up huge point totals in some games, 33 points against Houston Baptist, and last weekend she started and scored 19 points in the win against Georgia State.
Yeah, she certainly has that ability. Now the challenge for Alexis is, sometimes I think maybe she tries to put too much on her shoulders, and we want her to be aggressive, obviously looking for opportunities to score, but at the same time, we need her to be a facilitator, if you will, and trying to create for others. And we've got to get a little more balance. Right now, her and Gabby Cortez are the only 2 people averaging in double figures, and we'd like to see, Carissa Moody as a freshman is just a shade under 10 points a game in terms of Sun Belt play anyhow, but we'd like to see more people stepping up consistently, getting the 7, 8, 9, 10 points a game to join Alexis and Gabby. But yeah, she definitely has the ability to create her own shot. Without Andriana Jackson right now, she might be our only guard that really kind of has that ability to get in the paint and make things happen on a consistent basis.
Coach, how do you see these next 2 games against Texas State and UTA playing out? As you mentioned, it's been a competitive series with the Bobcats over the last couple of years.
Well, it really has, and they're certainly very different opponents altogether. Texas State. Right now, as you can imagine, my focus is entirely on them, but a lot of the same plays, same personnel that they've had. Of course, they're going to get a lot of threes up, so we've got to make sure we defend the arc. They're very balanced. You've got a lot of people that all seem to be averaging anywhere between 5 and 9 points a game, so it's not like you can key on any one player. I look at, of course, you have, as a coach, you have a tendency to do this. How did you win and how did you lose? Last year, and last year at their place, I believe they shot 37 free throws in the loss. For us, and when we beat them at our place, I think they shot 12 free throws. So certainly, hopefully, winning the free throw battle, if you will be important. And we've got better rebounding, but that's another area that we've got to be strong on Thursday night, and is keep them off the O boards and go find a way to get our share. Certainly with UT Arlington, obviously a little different look. Now they're kind of going more 4 guards, and obviously Rebecca Van Dyke inside. So that kind of poses some problems matchup-wise in terms of the personnel that they have out on the floor. But and it's a lot more than just the Rebecca Van Dyke show, for sure. Again, a very balanced team, and they can hurt you in a number of ways.
Coach, this season you're tied for second in the league in blocked shots. What's been the key to making some stops on the defensive end for you guys?
Well, a lot of that is probably namely Stephanie Ratliff, and she does a great job of rotating to help and challenging shots, and she's critical. She has a tendency to kind of clean things up. If we get driven on, like I said, she'll rotate over and get the shot blocked, and so she's a big part of that as well. But and we're going to need Steph certainly on the defensive end, and trying to get more production out of her from an offensive standpoint as well.
Thanks, Coach. We'll take a question here from Whitney Hayworth of the Sunbelt Digital Network.
Good morning, Coach. Quick question. We've been talking a lot about women's basketball initiatives this week. Obviously, the conference announced the Angel Elderkin initiative, but separate from that one, it's officially the We Back Pat Week for women's basketball. So can you just kind of talk a little bit about that and what that initiative specifically means to you, and maybe if you have any stories growing up and in your coaching career with Pat Summitt, if you'd care to share those?
Well, I know as somebody that, this is my 27th year of coaching, college women's basketball, and I can remember, as far back as when I first got started as a graduate assistant at University of Oregon. Obviously geographically a long ways away from Knoxville, Tennessee, but even just when I first kind of started getting into the game, that Tennessee women's basketball and Pat Summitt, that was. They were on such a high pedestal and revered, and all the years that I've attended the women's Final Fours, and I think I know Rocky Top off the top of my head and could recite the song, but hearing their band play it so many times. But she was such a fierce competitor. Obviously, it showed, with her teams. Always disciplined, organized. Like I said, just a tough group of players, and certainly a reflection of Coach Summitt in that regard. But it has meant obviously a lot to the game, and clearly women's basketball would not have made the ascent that it has, in the last 15 or 20 years without her contributions.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Coach, on that note, the Sunbelt announced this week our own initiative with Angel Elderkin, and your thoughts on not only hosting a game during the Suits and Sneakers Week, but also just the Sunbelt and the coaches taking part in this initiative.
Well, I think it's a tremendous thing, a tremendous initiative that all the coaches are doing in the Sunbelt, I should say. But, Angel is somebody that I've gotten to know a little bit in the last couple of years, and in fact, she was actually instrumental in us hiring our graduate assistant, Caroline Knuckles. They had worked together at LSU when Angel was an assistant there, and she is, if anybody's going to beat this, it's going to be Angel. I mean, such a competitive person, Again, as I said, having seen it firsthand, going up against their teams and how tough they are, competitive they are, and it's unfortunate, obviously, that these circumstances have come up. But like I said, I'm proud to be associated with the Sun Belt and our women's basketball coaches and the league as a whole that we're doing something like this in such a public forum.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your time this morning, and thanks again for joining us on the teleconference.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys.